Good morning and welcome back to our Expo webinar series. Today, we're going to kick it off here at our 11 o'clock hour with technology in agriculture or apps in agriculture. We're going to talk about some apps. We're also going to talk about some web-based and some other helpful tools. So let's get started today. We're going to pull up our PowerPoint presentation. We'll just wait for a moment to get that loaded. Wait for a moment to get that loaded. And next slide, please. I'm Jason Whitfield. I'm our sales agronomist and programs manager out of agronomy. Matt Fleming for a moment to get that loaded. Pasture sales rep. So he's here. And next slide, please. Between the two of us. I'm Jason Whitfield. I'm our sales agronomist and programs manager out of agronomy. Matt Fleming for a moment to get that loaded. Pasture sales rep. So he's here. And next slide, please. Between the two of us. We'll play. I'm Jason Whitfield. I'm our sales agronomist and programs manager out of agronomy. Matt Fleming for a moment to get that loaded. Pasture sales rep. So he's here. And next slide, please. Between the two of us. Other one play. I'm Jason Whitfield. I'm our sales agronomist and programs manager out of agronomy. Matt Fleming for a moment to get that loaded. The pasture sales rep. So he's here. And next slide, please. Between the two of us. Other one play. I'm Jason Whitfield. I'm our sales agronomist and programs manager out of agronomy. Matt Fleming for a moment to get that loaded. The pasture sales rep. So he's here. And next slide, please. Between the two of us. Other one play. I'm Jason Whitfield. I'm our sales agronomist and programs manager out of agronomy. Matt Fleming for a moment to get that loaded. The pasture sales rep. So he's here. And next slide, please. Between the two of us. Other one play. I'm Jason Whitfield. I'm our sales agronomist and programs manager out of agronomy. Matt Fleming for a moment to get that loaded. The pasture sales rep. So he's here. And next slide, please. Between the two of us. Other one play. I'm Jason Whitfield. I'm our sales agronomist and programs manager out of agronomy. Matt Fleming for a moment to get that loaded. The pasture sales rep. So he's here. And next slide, please. Between the two of us. Other one play. I'm Jason Whitfield. I'm our sales agronomist and programs manager out of agronomy. Matt Fleming for a moment to get that loaded. The pasture sales rep. So he's here. And next slide, please. Between the two of us. Other one play. I'm Jason Whitfield. I'm our sales agronomist and programs manager out of agronomy. Matt Fleming for a moment to get that loaded. The pasture sales rep. So he's here. And next slide, please. Between the two of us. Other one play. I'm Jason Whitfield. I'm our sales agronomist and programs manager out of agronomy. Matt Fleming for a moment to get that loaded. The pasture sales rep. So he's here. And next slide, please. Between the two of us. Other one play. I'm Jason Whitfield. I'm our sales agronomist and programs manager out of agronomy. Matt Fleming for a moment to get that loaded. The pasture sales rep. So he's here. And next slide. Pond management, or lake, tank, whatever it is you have, whatever body of water, a lot of the herbicides that we would introduce into the aquatic situation, you would need to know either the perimeter of your waterway or your surface acreage of your waterway. So you can trace that in Google Earth. And the good thing about it is once you get it in there, you can store it, have it available to use and call on whenever you need it. If we're going to do an application job for you, you'll know your exact acreage. So we'll know that we can load the trucks with the proper amount of material, not have any leftover. So you can map your field boundaries, and it's a great visual database for your property management. So leading into the next slide. Next slide, please. So the Web Soil Survey is a great tool put out by the NRCS. It could be a little bulky to use. You would want to access this on your web browser. You can just search for Web Soil Survey. It'll take you right to it. It'll be one of the top results. You would want to select your area of interest, so that's your field. I've done that here in this slide. I've just traced the boundaries in it, and the blue hash marks are telling you that that is the area of interest that we're going to look at. Then on the next tab on that screen, it'll say Soil Map. So we'll go to that. This would be your soil map for that area of interest. You see we have two soil types present on the southwest side of the field, northeast side of the field. That's the same soil type, and we have a strip through the center of a different soil type. So that's important to know when you're managing your property or soil sampling, because you would want to make sure your soil sample was representative of the different soil types across your piece of property, your hayfield, your grazing paddock. Good information to know, and I'll show you how you can use this by exporting it out into another tool, Maps Plus. So Maps Plus is a pretty powerful mapping tool. I use it to track myself visibly in the field so I know where I'm standing. It'll track you real time, and this is just completely awesome for soil sampling. So we'll show you what a screenshot looks like in Maps Plus. So what I've done is I've exported out those two soil types. They show up in 3 different colors, but we know from our soil maps that the two end colors, the blue and the pink, are the same. And what it boils down to is 50% of this field is one soil type, 50% is a different soil type. So when we're soil sampling, if you want to do it correctly, you want 15 to 20 individual cores taken from your field. So if we're going to take 16 cores, that's good representative sample. We will want half of those to come from both the blue and the pink area, and half to come through the tan strip in the middle. So they 8 out of one soil type, 8 out of another. Now we know that we've made a good composite sample of what's in the field. Now, if you'll give it one click, Tyler, you'll see that the mouse pointer, the pointer, that's your position in the field. And as you cross your soil boundaries, you can see that you're in a new soil type. So that'll help you space out your sampling and make sure that you're getting that good, clean sample that's going to be reliable in determining what your fertility needs are. Weather monitoring. So Bayer had bought a startup company a while ago. Actually, it's been in the Bayer portfolio for a while, called the Climate Corporation. In the Climate Corporation piece of software, again, available on an app on your computer. I like to use a lot of these on my PC because I have a little bit more flexibility with my mouse. The screen's bigger, then I can map my fields in here. But what you can do is you map the boundaries of your field again, and this will give you rainfall, precipitation information, your temperature highs and lows. It has a soil map in here again, like we've seen in the web soil survey. There's some prescription options or subscription options in here where you can view your vegetation imagery, but I'll show you a free piece of software for that in just a moment. Let's go to the next slide. So here's a field I had mapped. This happened to have been a corn plot. So I wanted to know what the annual precipitation was, or what the precipitation was between 2 dates. In this instance, beginning of the year through harvest. I wanted to know how much rainfall that piece of land had accumulated. So we'll go to the next slide. And this is a little bit of zoomed in snippet of the cumulative precipitation totals on that piece of property from the beginning of the year. So we saw that we had, it's hard for me to read from here, but about over 25 inches of accumulated rainfall on the date that I selected. So you can move your mouse anywhere along that blue cumulative total and see what the total is for any period of time. So what I had done on here is actually went from a planting date to a harvest date. Even though it shows the entire year's worth of precipitation that particular year, I also was able to calculate the difference in the planting to harvest date to see how much that corn crop had accumulated. So I can get a feel for if my yields were off. I know that rainfall was off, or there was a significant amount of rainfall that occurred that swamped that piece of ground during a very important growth stage in that corn's life. Works the same for your grasses, your hay fields. You can monitor them. So if you have a piece of property, say you live in Houston, you have a piece of property in Robertson County, you want to know what your rainfall was, You just go in here, map it. It'll email you if you had any precipitation. So it's a good little tool to manage your property from afar and get a good feel for where you stand precipitation wise. The next slide we look at here is showing you a product called Greencast. So Greencast, you'd access this on the web, and what it allows you to do is select any point on the map, ideally your property, and you can see what the soil temperature is at that given time. This is important because everybody wants to know, when do I plant, when do I spray? Well, about 65 to 70 degrees, whether you're going from high temperatures, going down, crossing over that 70-degree threshold in the soil to 65 degrees and cooler, we know that at that 65, 70-degree time frame in the year, that's when we're going to start germinating our cool season weeds. So that's important to know now. As we come out of winter into spring and the soil temperature starts to go up, then we're going to get into the 53-degree soil range. Why is that important? Because that's when grass burrs germinate. So if we're going to put out a prowl application to get a jump start ahead of those grass burrs, it's going to have to happen before soil temperatures reach 53 degrees, because once we reach 53, they've germinated, and a prowl application is not going to benefit you at that point. So we get up, the soil temperatures begin to increase, we get 65, 70 degrees. Now our warm season weeds start to germinate. So this is also when we want to plant warm season grasses. Say you want to plant an improved hybrid Bermuda from a seed. Well, let's watch them soil temperatures. When they start to level off and hold at a certain temperature, then we know, hey, we're safe to go ahead, as long as precipitation is there, to go ahead and plant that seed. So soil temperature, very important. Looking at vegetation management. So here's that free piece of software I was telling you about. It's called OneSoil. They made some improvements in this software. I've spoke about this before, but it lets you monitor crop performance in near real time. I've looked on here, and satellite imagery updates probably once every 2 weeks. If there's any cloud cover, it will obviously not show up. If the satellite can't see through to the vegetation, we're not going to get a good reading. So it does show you if there's any cloud cover, but you can track grazing patterns, and you can monitor your forage or crop growth. So I'll show you what it looks like on the next slide. Might be a little hard to see, but here's a hayfield from one of our employees. He donated this to let me go ahead and put it out there as a guinea pig today. I just called this Field 8. What I did was I traced the boundaries of it and looked at the available imagery. This one here is from September 27th of this year. What we're looking at is, the darker the green, the more growth we have in those areas. Could be weeds, but it could be your desirable grass. So if you've done your weed control methods, then we know that this is grass. I know from visiting with him that this is a grass hayfield, relatively clean for the most part. So what we're looking at is vegetation on September 27th. So as you go from the dark greens to the light greens to the yellows to the oranges and the reds, those are where we start to lose vegetation in those areas. So we see there's a weak strip in the center of this field. So we know something's going on there. What it is that's a low water drainage area. So the field drains to that area and then drains off the field. So it tends to hold some more moisture. Could be good, could be bad. In a dry year, you probably see more vegetation there because it's holding moisture. In a wet year, it's going to swamp it out, and we're going to see less vegetation there. But let's go ahead to the next slide, and you'll see from September 27th to October 2nd, now we've got a lot more growth. Well, there happened to have been some precipitation in there, excuse me. We know that because we tracked it in our climate field view. So we were able to see that the precipitation came in there and the grass started to grow. So we still have some of the areas where there's low-lying areas where it's a little bit weaker on vegetation, but still strong vegetation everywhere else in the field, relatively uniform other than the two low spots. And you see those showing up as a bullseye. Top right-hand corner of the screen, that'd be the northeast side of the field. That happens to be an oil pad, so it is blanked out in white. There's no data for that particular spot. But Very useful tool to manage your vegetation, to know, hey, my hay field's improving or it's declining. You can find those specific spots in the field where the drainage is poor. You could work on your drainage, make any changes that you need to. Could be that area of the field, looking at your soil maps, is a sandy piece of ground. Maybe the pH is off. So it gives you some targets to go after in the field to help improve your field overall. Because what we want to do in the end is to make sure that we increase the amount of yield averaged across the field. We want that to increase. So more hay across that entire field, more corn across that entire field. Just make the best improvements that we can with the knowledge that we can gain from these tools. So speaking of controlling your weeds, University of Missouri Extension had put out this Weed ID app. It's pretty useful. It's got a lot of weeds in there, even though it's out of Missouri. A lot of the weeds are present in our area as well. So you can search by the weeds by their name if you know their name. If you don't, you can identify them based on their characteristics. So it sort of works like a plant key that we use. Go through step by step and look at the details of the weeds. I'll show you the screenshot of that on the next slide. There it is. So you would see grass, or is it a broadleaf? So you'd make your selection. You can select your seed head type or any characteristic that describes the weed that you're holding in your hand or viewing in your pasture. So you will go through here until it narrows it down to a select group of weeds, and then you can match it up a heck of a lot easier. Sometimes it'll give you just one. If you've provided it with enough information, you'll get one good solid result at the end of going through the key. Or you may have 2 or 3 different options it could be, and you can narrow it down from there, but just by looking at those 3 options. Next app is from Oklahoma State University, Grazing Management Toxic Plants. So this is a list of toxic plants that could create some issues for your different livestock species. Plants are also scored for usefulness of plant as a grazing or forage for livestock. There's a scale where a ranking is based on a 0 to 4, where 0 is not recommended, 4 being highly recommended. So we'll jump to the next slide to show the screenshot of that app. So there you see the welcome screen on the left. From there, you can select your class of livestock, whether it's cattle, horses, sheep. There you can move on to seeing the different plants that could potentially create an issue for you with that class of livestock. And you can click on each of them and learn a little bit about them and see, obviously we see alfalfa on there. In itself is not toxic, but it could create bloat issues. And so some of those issues will be detailed as you go through and explore the app. So it's a good app to keep to make sure that everything is going smoothly as far as your grazing goes. So on to CPP and miscellaneous. Tank Mix app by Precision Laboratories. I found this useful from time to time. It gives you mixing order, which could be important depending on which mix of herbicides, insecticides, or adjuvants you're using. You can select a sort of a generic name for each of them in here that you're going to be mixing and putting in your tank together. And it'll alert you if there's any potential tank mixing issues. It also has some spray logs, and you can record your GPS location, time spent spraying. Again, weather details. A lot of these apps will have weather details. We'll go to the next screen. I'll give you just a brief screenshot of it. So I just popped in Prevathon, which I say it's new. I want to say it's new because it's relatively new in the portfolio, but it came out a couple years ago. But I had put Prevathon in here and said, I want to mix it with 2,4-D and an adjuvant. And then I get any information off on the right-hand side that says, hey, if you're going to mix it with glyphosate, do this, don't do that, don't do this. Just gives us any quick heads up. You still want to check your product labels, and we're not endorsing any of these apps per se. We're just sharing some information on some apps that we found out there. Good good information, good starting point. But from here, you'd want to definitely jump over to the product labels and make sure that these apps didn't miss anything. Nobody's perfect, but it's a great starting point. So the next app, we get a lot of people who are interested in using their smart device, phone, tablet, whatnot, as a GPS to monitor where they're spraying in the field. I've looked at several of these apps. I haven't found any that have just awesome ratings. And again, I'm not endorsing this app in itself. I found a link to this app on a university website that mentioned this one as a potential good tool to use. But what it essentially gives you is a monitor. You would set this in your cab or just above your steering wheel where you can view it. Across the top of the screen is what we would call a light bar. It tells you which way you need to go to get back on track for your next pass. If you need to go more to the right, more to the left, or if you're centered on your next pass, you would have already set your swath width in there. So if you're spreading dry fertilizer, you may say, I'm spreading 30 foot, 15 foot on either side. As you drive, it will line you up to make sure that you're getting your spacing within your field appropriately on what we would call an AB line. Those are the blue lines you see on here. You would start a line, say near your fence, drive down that fence, and in that line, there's your first AB line. Then it'll offset them 30 foot, and the light bar will then help guide you into your next line as you make your turn. What I found with these apps like this is they're only as good as the GPS chip in your phone, which I'm going to tell you sometimes is not that great. Sometimes it's spot on. I use my phone GPS quite a bit to know where I am in a field, and I've noticed it bounce around. In fact, one of the chips in one of my older iPhones was not lining up or syncing appropriately to my position, and I replaced that cell phone. What you can do to make tools like this more accurate is purchase a separate GPS unit that you would put on your tractor, your implement, whatever it is you have that you want to track. Link it to one of these apps. Then you will know that you're linked up to the satellite more accurately. You're not using your cell phone's GPS, but you're using your cell phone as a monitor. So you would then use the app like normal, but instead of using the chip that's in your phone that's determining your GPS position, you're using a separate GPS unit. I still think you'll come out cheaper than purchasing a higher end unit. It may not be as great, but if it's something that you want to try, there are these apps out there. So again, the app can use the GPS in your phone. There could be 3, 4, 5 meter difference. So just be conscious of that. You want to make an app like this work more accurately, you would want to purchase a separate GPS unit that would link to the app and allow you to use your phone as a display. The next tool I'm going to split with Matt, excuse me, who's going to step in here in a moment. It's called Ag Tools. And some of these apps we can spend a minute on. Some of them we could spend 45 minutes on. This is one that has a lot of options that we can spend a lot more time on it, which we don't have today. But as far as having a one-stop source for different calculators, if you're looking at it for a land management section, then you have a Lime calculator, spray calibration calculator, both boom and boomless, dry fertilizer calculator. If you have an orchard, there's calculators on here to help you calibrate your and calculate your spray for orchards, planter calibration calculator, even pond fish stocking calculator. So you just have to spend some time with the app, use the parts of it that are relevant to you and your operation. And at the end of the day, we're just looking for something to help us with our calculations, to make us a little quicker. Use this technology to help move us forward in our operations. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt, who's going to go into more of your cattle management section and look at those apps and pick up with the sort of the other half of the calculator tool.
All right, thank you, Jason. So I'm going to go over some cattle management aspects that we can make our lives easier. There's some simple tools, but we all know our lives are extremely busy. It just seems like it gets busier every day. So anytime we can use something that's going to save some time and get us more accurate with our practices, then then that's something we should look at. So ag tools, Jason went over some portions that were pertinent to more of the kind of the forage and row crop side of things. I'm going to touch on a few things here. They have a body condition score change calculator. So you can watch your cattle and input different changes that you see, whether it's through the winter, if they're dropping in body condition score, or if you need to bring them back up, then you can watch those changes over time. So that's super handy. Breeding season calculator, you can see, you can put input when your bulls were turned out. It'll calculate the gestation of 283-day average, and then spit out basically when you should basically see your calves hit the ground. Another one is calving season calculator. If you want to target April 1st or October 1st or whatever it is, you can input how long you want your or your calving season to be, whether that's 30 days or 60 or a 45-day calving window. Then you can put that in there, and it'll tell you when to turn your bulls out. On the screen there, that's our supplement conversion calculator, and that basically helps you see how much you're supplementing, the cost of that supplement, and basically tell you what your cost of gain is. And then also another one in this program is the value of gain. How much you're spending on feed, are you getting that out of it when you go to market your cattle? So we'll go on to the next one here. There's some, so I'll go over some more apps here in a second. This is just a quick snapshot of just some non-app technology that we use as producers to help better our herds, better our pastures, and one of those is soil samples. Being able to know what's in your ground is going to be so beneficial to the grass that you're growing, the hay, the crops, and then in turn, be able to feed your cattle in a better way. Same thing with hay and forage samples. We can take samples of that hay that you already put up, or go out and get some forage clippings so that you can be more accurate in what you're feeding. And then nutrient requirements for cattle. That's key to know. So we use the technology that universities and researchers have put together to see what these cows need at different stages of their life. So if we can use that, pair it with our hay and forage samples, and then we can see how to supplement, then we'll just be more informed producers as we go along. I touched on one app. It's this next one coming up is Beef Cow BCS, and this one's pretty neat. The Ag Tools has a body condition score calculator in that, but this one goes a little bit more in depth. You can track cattle in their pastures. You can photograph the cow itself and pair it with the ear tag, and assign it to a pasture. So if you're moving around and maybe you put some cattle that need a little bit more weight and you're pushing them more, you can group those in different pastures and better get their body condition score to where you'd want it to as you go into calving season or into the winter. You can also tie it to your GPS, and you can actually tag a location of where that cow is, and then you can organize your cattle within groups, individually or by pasture, to see how you're doing. And so this next slide has a couple of screenshots just to kind of show you what the app looks like. It's a free app, super easy to use. You can compare it to some body condition scores that they already have preloaded, or you can actually condition or score it yourself and have that in your bag of tricks there to help you with your cow herd. The next one here, we'll get that up on the screen. It's a CVP Vet. Antibiotics and medications are sometimes a little bit confusing. You're not quite sure when to use something, if an animal is sick, or what the dosage rate is. This app is really handy. It's a free app as well. It's got like over 5,900 different medications and products listed out. You can search for a product if you know what you're looking for, or you can also look by what you're needing a product for, and then it'll give you some options and ideas. It'll help you with the dosage and the product labels on there, and it'll actually help you get that dosage for that animal. And on this next screen is a screenshot of it. Again, very basic. It's got a menu on how to search and what you're looking for. The example I pulled up was Draxin. So that's an antibiotic, broad spectrum antibiotic there, and you can just see the dosage and just kind of lays it all out there right in your fingertips while you're out in the field, and just makes it really handy to have. This next one is Mississippi State University made this app, and there is all sorts of good stuff in here. You have reproductive calculations. This one also has that calving season calculator and breeding season in there. So any reproductive areas that you're looking for, then this app will help with that. What I like really on this app is it really helps with animal performance. And so you can really check that average daily gain and the required gain. So if you're bringing in calves, or if you just freshly weaned some calves and you want them to get to a certain weight, we can all do calculations, but this makes it super easy. You just put in their in weight or their weaning weight, and what you want to market them as, and then it'll tell you, okay, you need to gain 2 pounds or 3 pounds or whatever that may be. And it really helps you do that in an efficient manner. And then also it has some more management calculations. You have different dosage calculations for dewormers, because that gets tricky. Sometimes you get different size cattle going through the chute at the same time. That really helps. Your frame score calculations on the size of your cows, trailer stocking. Can you fit as many cattle as you'd like to in your trailer, or maybe you need a bigger trailer for what you're trying to do, and also your yield grade calculations. This next screen shows you just some screenshots of that app. Again, it's a free app, super handy to use, and that just kind of lays it out there. You click on it, and it's really easily laid out, and it kind of shows you how to get along with that. This next app, I guess it's an app if you have the Datamars or the Datamars True Test scales. I actually just personally started using this. That's why I threw it up here. It is extremely user-friendly, and it's a great management tool. So it links, as your cattle go through your chute, it links right to your phone, and you can weigh cattle individually as they come through, or you can make a session. Last week I was check weighting some calves and made a session, and then it gives you the average weight, and it gives you your kind of outliers, whether they're lightweight or heavyweight. And then it shows you, your average, and then you can upload that to your desktop, and then you can manage that, and you can track animals' individual performance as you go. You can use EID tags on here, so then they automatically transfer right over their weight to their tag number, and then you can track them. So you can track average daily gain, their performance, maybe when they're ready to ship as you weigh them. And so that's a super handy tool right there. This next one is called Calf Book. There's a bunch of different apps out there that help you manage your cow herd, your calving dates, weaning weights. I put this one on here. Very user friendly, but again, there's dozens out there. Some are you have to pay for, some are free, and some will go a little bit more in depth than others. It just depends on what your operation is and what you're looking for. And so this one will help you track cows' productivity. Are they on performance? Are they on track for your performance criteria? And so it's just a good app there. This next screen coming up here, it's a screenshot. Again, you can put in different tag numbers. You can group them by pastures. And again, just a good management tool to keep track of your cattle herd. We'll move on. There's going to be two apps here that are basically on marketing your cattle. These are extremely important, in my opinion, especially this time of day. I mean, the markets are fluctuating every day, so we just need to see, the best time to market our cattle, how to do that, and watch the commodity pricing, and because all that fluctuates and changes the market. So if we can do everything correctly on the front end, we can feed them right, we can soil test, we can have the best hay out there. But if we're not being able to market them when they need to be, then we're just kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. So these apps here really help us to see kind of where the market is. The next one here is, again, same concept as the Cattle Market Mobile. This is CattleFax, and should be coming on the screen here. This one's some of these you have to pay for, some of the subscriptions throughout the app, but there are a lot of free aspects to these. The CattleFax, you can get on there and check markets, but then you do have to subscribe if you want to know some of the news that's coming through. And this is just another good tool to have at your disposal. Here's some screenshots. You can check the weather, you can track the commodities, track the markets, and just, again, very user friendly and definitely a good thing to have. And so that's all we have for y'all today. Really appreciate it. Hope y'all got some good tools out of that. If you got any questions, we're always here for you. Most of us are in the business as well, so we're always trying to find the best routes to do things. And just appreciate y'all watching, and just come see us, and we'll help you out.